Hey folks, in my Anthem release video, I suspected Anthem's full production time to be 1.5 years or 2 at max. I was right. Jason Schreier from Kotaku interviewed 19 people close to or working at BioWare. Here's a summary of his massive article at Kotaku.com. Link is in the description below. Welcome back. Anthem was and is a chaotic, half-baked mess of a game. Now we know why. It even goes this far. They changed the game's name 3 weeks prior to its reveal on E3 2017. Its original title should have been Beyond, and t-shirts for the staff already had been printed. But trademarking Beyond proved to be too difficult, so they needed to fall back to another title. The staff was baffled and pointed out that the name Anthem didn't have anything to do with the game they were making. Incidents like these have been, according to the Kotaku article, common within the game's troubled development process. It seems like BioWare kept creating games in a very unstructured way. Dragon Age Inquisition, for example, was assumably mostly built within the last year of development, which led to long hours of crunch for the employees. The studio lead and veteran developers referenced to a mystic effect called BioWare Magic, which would make the pieces fall together in the end and create a great game even if most of the development process had been rough and felt like steering directly into a disaster. Well, it's easy to follow this kind of ideology if you're not the one having to do the crunches, but that's just an assumption from my side. Let's put my opinion to the side and start at the beginning. In 2012, the game started as Project Dylan. They wanted to create an action game you could play with friends, set on a hostile alien world. Titles like Dark Souls, Darkest Dungeon and Shadow of the Colossus are named in early design ideas. The world would be inhabited by scary creatures and only your exosuit would enable you to survive. Anthem would be an expeditionary style game in the end, they supposed. Environmental effects like rain, volcanic activity and snow would play a large role also and create challenges for the team of players to overcome on their way to their main objective. Most of the staff really was excited about the project, but no one knew if these ideas would work on MMO level, or if the Frostbite engine, which EA forced on most if not all of its studios, would be suited for the job. Within this maelstrom of these and many other open questions, Casey Hudson, the director of the Mass Effect trilogy and creative director of Anthem, left the company. But he was quite confident and proclaimed the team was ready to go into pre-production of a game that would change the industry. Casey Hudson is described as the Captain Picard type of guy. His team thought highly of him, and he did a remarkable job of focusing everyone into a single goal. Now they lost their captain, and the decision-making got handed over to a board of directors. With many open questions and no one to really guide the team, they were left to test out different approaches. The world would be massive, so how would players traverse it? Flying, gliding, climbing mountains, everything was tried out, scrapped and tried out again. Every time they changed the movement system, they had to change the world as well to accommodate the latest way of traversal. The procedural weather hazard system and creature spawn didn't work smoothly too, and was deemed to be not fun at all in the end. Then, in 2015, a major management mistake happened. David Gaider moved to Anthem. He's a veteran and very good Dragon Age writer. His take on Anthem's story sounded very different than the ideas the team had been experimenting with for years. Based on what I can draw out of the article, he was pushed towards a more fantasy-ish setting by the management, and there was a lot of resistance within the team. They didn't want to build a sci-fi Dragon Age, but rather refine their own vision of the game, which I can totally relate to. They just put a new executive on top of a team which worked on the project for years and had him do major changes without asking all the other people involved. They quite rightly felt overlooked and mistreated. As a result, Gaider left BioWare in early 2016 as, like he states, he didn't feel keen to play the game he was working on. I think he rather left out of frustration and the feeling of not being welcome, but that's just an assumption. So, new writers came and the story was reset again. As you can imagine, writing for BioWare sets the foundation for all the games, said one developer. When writing is unsure of what it's doing, it causes a lot of destruction to a lot of departments. The team still complained about a lack of vision and lots of dissension between the members of the leadership board. It is said they didn't iterate on ideas but just dumped things if they didn't work out and started over from scratch. No one was there to make decisions and form a real vision. So, figuring out how to move on took years instead of months. And even then, core components of the gameplay still hadn't been fleshed out. In 2016, they moved from one available city to multiple. The story constantly changed and they were still trying to figure out how crafting would work. And most importantly, the back-end architecture still was a bare brickwork at best. And then there's the Frostbite engine. It's full of razor blades. a former BioWare employee told Kotaku. Frostbite is used instead of third-party engines because EA can save a lot of licensing fees this way. BioWare first used the engine in 2011 for Dragon Age Inquisition, which caused a lot of problems. Many of the features usually already integrated in a commercial engine, like a save and load function or a third-person camera, simply weren't available, since Frostbite had been developed for FPS games. Anthem faced similar problems. Frostbite is like an in-house engine with all the problems that entails. It's poorly documented, hacked together, and so on, with all the problems of an externally sourced engine, said one former BioWare employee. Nobody you actually worked with designed it, so you don't know why this thing works the way it does, why this is named the way it is. It all ended in cutting out several survival and environmental features, because they'd have to reinvent the wheel to make them work. It took weeks to fix bugs, which would usually take a day or two. Lots of pre-developed features, like Dragon Age's inventory system, couldn't be used because Anthem was an online game. And technical support from other teams was a scarce resource, because they were busy porting FIFA to Frostbite. FIFA is one of EA's most profitable service games out there and therefore enjoys priority. By the end of 2016, things hadn't moved far. The leadership board ignored games like Destiny and didn't want to discuss it, as an employee mentions. By suppressing discussions, "We are not copying Destiny," they made it difficult for the staff to learn from Bungie's shooter. Then came 2017 and Mass Effect Andromeda launched. Lots of its staff was moved to the Anthem team. Also, EA's Patrick Söderlund played the Anthem Christmas demo and called it unacceptable. In fear of losing their jobs, the Anthem team started a 6-week-long crunch to create a new demo for Söderlund. The team reintegrated the flying mechanics, which had been removed a while ago. They needed to impress the board, and flying was suited for this task. As the demo was finished and Söderlund played it, he was stunned. This bolted together demo then became the foundation of the E3 2017 gameplay trailer most of us know. It's full of interesting creatures, dynamic environments, and gameplay elements that never made it into the final game. "Okay, this is the game we're making," said the staff, which was kinda tricky because the demo was mostly fake and lots of mechanics still weren't fleshed out completely, or there even was the question whether they could be realized at all. BioWare announced the game would ship in fall 2018. Not a single mission had been implemented at this point. "Anthem is the game you get from a studio that is at war with itself," said one former BioWare developer. As a result of still having no vision for the game, the freed up staff from Mass Effect Andromeda didn't understand what the game was all about. And also, the management didn't listen to the new guys. They were the only people within BioWare who already had created a massive multiplayer online experience, namely the Old Republic. They pointed out how Anthem's take on storytelling would split up the players. They already had encountered these problems, but they repeatedly got ignored. Anthem went into full production in June 2017. The story still was in flux and gameplay mechanics like suit powers and mission structure still weren't finalized. In October, Casey Hudson returned, and he placed Mark Daria as the executive producer for Anthem. Mark Daria began taking decisions and started to push the game towards completion, which in my opinion was long overdue. The design board wasn't in charge anymore, and so things began to move a lot faster. 2018 became one of the most tense years in BioWare's history. Pressure came from all sides, and the team worked day and night to ship Anthem at the end of EA's fiscal year, early 2019. And despite all this chaos, EA pushed the game to be a live service game with the option for long-term monetization. "I don't know how accurate this is," said one BioWare developer, "but I felt like the entire game was basically built in the last 6 to 9 months. You couldn't play it, there was nothing there. It was just this crazy final rush." Just a few months before release, the leadership realized that there wasn't a single hub in the game where players could boast with their gear. Fort Tarsis was a single-player only experience. But why would players buy cosmetic items if no one would ever see them up close? So EA's Motive Studio was tasked to build the launch bay, where players could meet and hang out to show off their gear. The launch bay was implemented last minute before the release of the demo. Also, during the troubling year of 2018, many high-level staff members left and went to other cities or followed former BioWare boss Aaron Flynn to his new company. Those who remained launched Anthem in February 2019, and we all know what happened next. So, this was just a rough summary of the whole article. Make sure you read it if you really want to know what most probably was going on with Anthem's development. And well, what do I think? I think this all could be very accurate. I've experienced every element of this story first or second hand within large corporate environments. On top of that, BioWare's awful response to the article underlines all the statements it made quite impressively. They complain about not being treated in a fair way and, quote, "We put great emphasis on our workplace culture in our studios. We do everything we can to try and make it healthy and stress-free. but we also know there's always room to improve. If anything, that's a corporate way of saying "F our employees." We're only investing so much into their mental health and working conditions and not a penny more. In the end, it's only sales numbers that matter. Then there's this quote: "The creative process is often difficult. The struggles and challenges of making video games are very real. But the reward of putting something we created into the hands of our players is amazing. People in this industry put so much passion and energy into making something fun. We don't see the value in tearing down one another or one another's work. We don't believe articles that do that are making our industry and craft better." You know what comes to my mind here? Yes, you greedy fucks. The creative process often is a difficult one, something I personally know very well. But with proper leadership and without idiotic crunch times just for the numbers, also known as release within a given fiscal year while ignoring the project's overall progress, this process would be a lot easier for most of the people involved, except those just giving commands and not having to participate in the crunch. They, of course, don't give a single fuck, and that's how this response sounds like. And of course, they don't see value in Jason Schreier's article, because investigative journalism like this exposes corporate practices of treating their employees like expendable slaves and potential buyers as lowbrow walking wallets without a brain to speak of. So, I hope this message gets around and lets players refrain from spending another single buck into Anthem. I am happy about any article, video or podcast spreading the information from Schreier's article. And I hope you guys, the gamers worldwide, will send a message with your wallets. Don't support products like Anthem and the like. That's it for today. If you liked the video, then please share it with your friends on forums, on Discord, everywhere you like. I really depend on your shares since YouTube's algorithm favors big channels over small ones like mine. So I'm more than grateful for every single video shared somewhere on the internet. It's the only way I can grow the channel and gain more reach. Thanks for stopping by and see you on the next Magnets and Miracles.